Hello everyone. Um, Happy Monday. I didn't do a video yesterday because of the Super Bowl. I had a whole lot of plans going on. I am apologizing for that. I will continue this with my day 7 of my 30-day project. What we missed yesterday was Swordland. The Swordland event, it comes around every 2 weeks, so we'll have another chance at that during the next one. Right now we are going to be doing a couple of different events. We're currently on the Strongest Governor, so we're going to go over that a little bit. And once we go over the Strongest Governor, I'm going to talk a little bit about hero selection for certain things in the game, just so you can understand how each hero works together and why you should pick some over the others. And I'm going to be discussing this not only as a pay-to-win aspect, but also a free-to-play aspect. So let's first jump into it with Strongest Governor. This is the Strongest Governor event. It's a 1 week long event, and it is kind of like the other half of Castle Battle and KVK. So you'll get Strongest Governor and then Castle Battle, and then you get KVK and then Castle Battle. So Strongest Governor is like your own state for the most part, but there is also like a kingdom-wide ranking system. The kingdom-wide ranking system, the rewards for it are okay. It's kind of like just a little bit extra for those people who do really well. But the ones for like the alliances and stuff like that, or the kingdom rewards, they're not that great. You get a little bit over like a day of speed ups. Not even that, you get like half a day of speed ups. But you don't really need to try too hard in this event. I typically try to go for the milestones. Day 1 here is pretty hard to go for a milestone. Luckily, we have the War Academy now. So getting True Gold Dust and doing some research that way was a good way to get some points today. I went a little bit into my cavalry tree just to make sure I got a little bit of points for today. You don't really want to spend too much points on this. I kind of went double what I needed to because I started that other research and I shouldn't have. But on day 2, you actually get the roulette again. So if you saved up your gems, you can use the roulette to kind of shore up your points. They don't have. I can talk about that more tomorrow. Day 3, they have the roulette as well. So on day 2 and day 3, as long as you've saved enough gems to do your 120 spins for the roulette milestone, because there's a milestone in the roulette for 120 point spins. There's also one for 70 spins. And going for that one will also get you your milestone rewards for Governor. So if you only want to do 70, that's fine. And you can split it 35 and 35 between both days. But the first day, there isn't really anything you can do other than race a Governor Gear Charm, do something with your buildings, or do something with your tech. So you got to do one of those things in order to get points on today. So tomorrow and the next day, we're looking at the wheel. On the day 4, we can do troops, which means tomorrow we will be prepping for that by using the training buff and getting the King's position for Noble Advisor, and then just training some troops. And then on day 4, we will collect them. Day 5, there's a bunch of stuff you can do here too, but once again, you can't really do stuff that doesn't require resources you would need for KVK. So you can do a couple of forge hammers, a couple of widgets. You can do True Gold again for your research or your construction, whatever you need. Day 6 is troop training again. So that means once you collect your troops on day 4, you do the same thing you did on day 2, get the Noble Advisor buff, use your training boost, and then just train new troops, collect them on day 6, and boom, you got your points on day 6 too. So 2, 3, 4, and 6, very easy to get points without spending KVK resources. Day 7. So day 7, you can do points with gathering, you can do points with ascending shards, you can do points with all kinds of other things that you can spend KVK resources on. But because gathering in the wilderness is here, you can do this. One gathering pot is worth 14 million gathering points, and you need 200 or 2,500 gathering points for 3 points, basically. So while you're out there gathering up your stuff, you can do that one day 6, 7 hours or so before the day ends. Send out 6 of your marches to do gathering, and then activate your pet buff, which is over here. You can activate this. Mine's maxed out and it has a 15-hour cooldown. If 7 hours before the event happens, I send out my gatherings, and then I use this buff. That means I can get it right when the event or right when the day starts. I can call back my gatherings, send out another one. This will activate when I send that one out. The cooldown will go to 8 hours. And then 8 hours later, after because I go gather again, 7 hours later they'll come back. And then right after they come back, this should be cooled down because 8 hours would have passed. I can use it again and then it will cool down for 15 hours. And then if I'm fast enough and very diligent enough, I can get it one more time before the day ends and end up getting 3 of this buff in one day by doing it that way. Now you can, manipulate that a little bit more by, since it's a 15-hour cooldown, you can go into your island and, let me go on my island and show you. So you can go into your island and you can remove the buildings that increase your troop gathering speed, or your march gathering speeds. And when you do that, it'll increase your march time, or not your march time, your gathering time. I can get mine up to about 11 hours, which drops that pet buff down to a 4-hour cooldown on the next day. So if I just have, right in the middle of the day, send out my gatherings and then hit my pet buff will be, or my gatherings will come back at the beginning of the day. My pet buff will be still active. I send out a march that the pet buff will activate on. The cooldown will reset to 4 hours, and then I can do it 4 hours later instead of 8 hours later. And that gives me, instead of 1 hour at the end of the day, to give me 5 hours at the end of the day to make sure I get that third pet buff usage. So that's stuff for the strongest governor on how to get, good points and everything like that. So let's talk a little bit about the heroes and which ones you should use at what times and stuff like that. So one thing a lot of people that are free to play don't realize is that, the meta heroes that we use, like Margot, Alcar, and all of them, we use them because of their widgets. Every widget if it's maxed out, it gives you a 15% bonus to something. With Margot, it's the defender squad's lethality, meaning she's best at defending things, whether that be your city, a garrison at the castle battle, a garrison in Swordland, anything like that. She's going to do really well at defending because she's going to boost your lethality by 15%. And this is back end 15%. It's basically part of the damage formulas, like skill modifications. And it just happens all the way at the end. So it's going to give you 15% of like your total stat bonus. So like if I go to a battle report, like this one here, it would be, all of these lethalities here would go up by 15%. And that's how that one affects it. It's unlike when you're doing, lethality and gear. Like if you go to your gear here, like this lethality bonus is additive, so it goes in before all that stuff's done. And then your widget will increase this afterwards. So that's how widgets work. They do it on the back end after all of the bonuses have been calculated and put into effect. Alcar, also a defender, he increases your health by 15%. And then I use Saw for my garrison because garrisons are usually like no archers. It's like 60-40. And because I don't have archers, I don't need a strong archer hero. So the reason I'm saying this is I've showed you in a previous video about how we sign up that same way for Alliance Championship. When you don't have a specific troop type in your march, the gear and stats for your hero do not matter, but the widget still does. Because this increases all of your troops' attack by 15%, not just your archers. So the widget comes into play by boosting every single one of your stats by that amount, not just the ones for that troop type. So you can send, an archer with a decent widget for what you're doing into battle, and it will give its bonuses to the rest of your troops. Now the same thing is like if I was sending Marlin or Rosa into an attack, and in that attack I'm not using any archers, I can still just send a completely naked Marlin into battle with his widget, and he'll increase all of that rally's infantry and cavalry's lethality by 15%. So that's how it works when you're sending no troops in a rally. It's like all of the gear for that hero doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is his widget. And this one's an attack rally widget. When you're doing Bear Pit, because the way that widgets work is they increase those stats at the back end, So like 15% of 500, like for me, for instance, that's a 75% boost to all of my stats if all of my stats are 500% or higher. That means that for people like Marlon, so like if I look at his stats, he's got 240% archer attack. And then if I look at Rosa, she's got 370 archer attack. So if your widget were to increase attack for one of these people, or for one of these troop types, and you're using those troop types, that's a 130% difference. In this particular case, Rosa would do more damage as an archer. But when you're looking at somebody who's not an archer, like let's say, Amadeus or Helga, who you're not really using infantry for, because in Bear Pit you're going to typically use either 1 or 2% of your infantry or of your march size for infantry, and then the rest is going to be cavalry and archer because infantry don't do damage. So you really just want to look at which one's widget is going to be higher leveled, because that one's going to be better damage for your archers and your cavalry. And some people would be like, well, what if I don't have widgets? That's a good question. So the next thing you look at is the skills for the hero. The way that most skills work is you're going to have, these percent-based skills, which have a chance of activating based on their level, and then they give you, what that effect does based on their level as well. Percent-based skills are random, so they're not always going to be active, they're not always going to be in effect, and when it's something like Bear Pit, using a defensive skill like Helga has here is not always a good idea. However, Helga does have attack up and lethality up, and they're static abilities. Static means there's no percent-based chance for them to activate. They're always active during the battle. So she's automatically giving you 20% lethality and 20% attack, which I've also told you in the previous video. Those are multiplied together. So they're not giving you 40% of your increased damage. They're giving you kind of closer to 45%, because it's 1.2 times 1.2. It's not times 1.4. Because they're different stats, so it's going to, and the way that the damage formula works, they're being compounded. And Amadeus has the same skills. He has attack up and lethality up, so he's doing the same thing. And mine's higher leveled than my Helga is, and he's got level 5 skills, so his are going to be times 1.25 and times 1.25, not times 1.5. It's going to be closer to times like 1.625 or something like that. It's weird. You can do the math yourself, and you can see what kind of effect it has. But it's more than just going up by 50%. It's going to go up probably by 62.5% instead. And then he also has a percent-based skill, and unlike Helga, his is for damage. So when he activates this skill, not just his infantry, but all of your troops will deal 40% increased damage, or 40% chance to do 50% damage for all squads. So that means your archers get 50% more damage and your cavalry gets 50% more damage when this activates. And it's a 40% chance. So you're like, now you're probably wondering, well, what if I don't have all these meta heroes and the ones that everybody's using that are really good? Well, you can use some of these purple heroes as well. They don't have widgets, but people like Chenko who have lethality up, she also has this damage taken down percentile skill. This doesn't work on Bear Pit, but it does give her a skill to use. Having two opposing skills like this means that she is versatile, and she can be used to attack and defend. And because she has this skill here, she makes a really good joiner, because this first skill is always a joiner skill. And you want somebody that has a decent skill like this when they're joining. Now, I will say that if you join somebody who's using like an Amadeus or a Helga who has lethality up as well, this then becomes an addition to that lethality. It doesn't multiply like when you're doing lethality and attack together. So say you have like 2 Chenkos, 2 Amanis, and Amadeus as part of the rally. You're going to get a 75% increase to your lethality, a 75% increase to your attack. And then those two are going to multiply together, so it'll be 1.75 times 1.75. Because as long as the stats are the same, they add together, and if they're different, they multiply. So that's kind of how the damage works for that. Now you also have Gordon. He's another, just like Chenko, he's a cavalry, but he's opposite of her, and both of his skills are static, which means on paper he's better as a hero if you're going to use them in your main march than Chenko is, because his skills are going to give you health up and attack up at a very flat ratio. When I say flat ratio, I mean it's going to be like a static bonus. They're not going to have percentile chances. You're always going to get these bonuses. In my opinion, Gordon is, the current best purple cavalry hero because of this. Not only that, but because he's attack and not lethality, when you mix him with someone, like, because you don't have a lot of good archer options in purple, like Diana doesn't have any, damaging skills, but Yi Wu is lethality up and Amani is attack up. So you can mix him with like Yi Wu instead of Amani, and Yi Wu and him together would give you both attack and lethality. Multiply them together, not add them together, and then you'd get more damage. And then you're looking at just Howard as your only infantry option that's not blue, and both of his skills reduce damage that you're going to take in some way, shape, or form. These are also not skills that affect the same stat. One of these affect the damage you take and reduce it, and one of these take the damage your enemies deal and reduce it. And it only affects their squad attack. So it doesn't affect, it'll affect all three of their troop types, and it will affect just one stat. It doesn't affect their entire damage formula, which actually makes him a little bit better than some other heroes that you could combine, just because when he's using this skill, he's kind of unique in that sense, that he only reduces their attack. Because if you look at people like Eric, he also reduces their attack, so he's like the upgrade to him. But then you got, what is hers? I know she does a reduced damage one. No, she doesn't. Okay, so she doesn't even reduce damage. She's just a straight up damage. I'm trying to find one that also does this. Here we go. So damage taken down. Oh, well, shit. Who was I looking for? I was looking for her. Yeah, here we go. So she reduces damage taken by all squads. So her first skill is Howard's first skill. And then Howard's second skill is Eric's first skill. So he has the joiner skills for both Eric and Helga as his main skills. And then Zoe has all attack skills, but she's not even like an attack widget. She's a defensive widget. So while she's defending, she's going to be like an offensive defender, which is really weird. Zoe is one of those heroes where she would have been amazing if she was given an attack widget, but because she's not a premium hero, because only Helga and Amadeus for like all seasons are going to have some kind of like rally widget, every other infantry hero that we've heard about is going to have a garrison widget. But she's going to be somebody that does damage in your garrison, where other people will be defensive in your garrison. So Zoe, that brings us to the point of like combining the right heroes together. So when you're using Zoe, since she boosts a lot of your damage on the garrison, you're going to want garrison heroes to accompany her that boost your defenses on the garrison. Because just like attack and lethality kind of multiply together, your defensive skills also multiply together. And the more things you have multiplying together in the damage formula, the better off you're going to be. So if you're looking at Zoe and you have, damage up, squad attack up, and enemy squad's damage taken up, these all affect the damage side of the damage formula. So let's look at Jaeger. He also does damage up. He reduces the enemy's lethality and he increases your health. So he gives you one more damage up, but he gives you the same kind of a skill as Zoe. So I would say he's probably not the best archer for that, just because he does the same skill. So it's going to be additive rather than multiplicative. But if you come over to Saul, he's got defense and health up as one of his skills, and then lethality up as another one. And Zoe does attack, not lethality. So those two would actually pair really well together. You could put Zoe with Saul, and you have your infantry and your archer. So then you're looking for a decent cavalry that also has a defender widget. And the only two options you have are like Hildy and Jabel. Hildy will increase your attack and defense, which you're already getting that from Saul and from Zoe. So that skill is going to be additive. You're getting more damage at a pretty decent chance of dealing a lot more damage. And then you're reducing your damage taken. So her two skills here are unique, but this one's going to be additive. So let's see if Jabel is better. So you're looking at damage taken down. So that's a different unique skill. 50% more damage. That's going to be a little bit additive. And then you're looking at lethality. That's also additive. So between Jabel and Hildy, Hildy has 2 unique skills for that particular formation and 1 additive skill. So your best possible combination for getting unique skills is using those 3 heroes together, and in some formation, and that would give you a really balanced, defensive garrison where your skills are getting the maximum potential boost. But at the same time, all 3 of these heroes are weaker heroes. Now that would be good for somebody who's a little bit more dolphin and less whale, because older heroes are easier to max out widgets for in the Hall of Heroes, because you're going to get cheaper widgets for Season 1 and Season 2 in the Hall of Heroes than you would anywhere else. So you could use these lower heroes and max them out a little easier, and just have a better time of being a little bit stronger than you are, for a lot less spending than the whales are doing. But typically you're going to want at least one person in your rally that's doing something more, with better stats. So like, if you're doing a defensive garrison, I would pick like Alcar. Even if his widget's not all that great, his stats, if you're looking at him versus Zoe, he's got 370 defense, whereas if you go to Zoe, she's got 240 defense. So he's 130% more defense bonus than Zoe is. And other than that, it's just a gear difference. So if you can live with that 130% difference in defense, great. But the other difference is like, if you're going to max these widgets, like these also this gives 60% health. And then if you go to Alcar's widget, it gives 92.5% health. So he's also got 32.5% more health than Zoe. And those 2 multiply together, remember, because everything that's different multiply together. So his defense and health multiplying together is a lot higher than Zoe's. So your infantry will last a lot longer with Alcar, but you do have that ability to get those different skills working together with your infantry, your cavalry, and your archer, just by picking the right ones. And you can go through all of your skills and just look at them. Most of them have a pretty accurate description of what they're doing. Look for damage. Look for the words damage, attack, lethality, damage taken, damage dealt, things like that. And as long as it affects a different side of the field or a different bonus, they mash together differently. So you want as many different bonuses as possible when you're doing things. That's why when I was looking at the purple heroes, I would say that Gordon and Chanko are both really good, cavalry units, but because Gordon's is a flat bonus and Chanko's is a percentile-based skill, Gordon's going to be better than her because his skill is always active. Plus, if you're using Gordon, Howard, and Ianmu, you're getting attack, you're getting lethality, you're getting defense. You're getting attack, lethality, and health. And then for Howard, you're getting reduced damage taken, and you're reducing your enemy's damage towards you. So there's a lot of options you can do. There's a lot of choices you can make. But the most educated decision you can make on your team of who you're going to pick and why is going to be how their skills interact together, and if you have someone that is going to be able to perform a superior role. Like I said, with the Alcar being stronger in defense, having that better defensive role in the front on a garrison would be good. At the same time, if you're doing like an attack, like a rally attack, you can use Gordon as your and Howard as your archer and as your cavalry and your defender, but you're going to need somebody that does a whole lot of damage. So you're going to want a better archer than what's available. You can try to go for Quinn, but he's got a damage up skill, and he's also got a damage taken down skill. So he's not going to be a great archer. You're probably going to want to have to use either a Rosa or a Marlin for that. So you should always focus at least one type or one hero for each type in your mythic heroes. What I tell my free-to-play people in my alliance is always focus one hero a season. Don't try to split the bill if you're free to play. Just pick one hero. What do you need the most, and focus on that one. For season 1, for instance, I told them just to focus on Jabel or Saul. It's harder to focus on Helga and Amadeus because they're pay to win, so you can't really do anything with them. Jabelle is extremely easy to level up in season 1 because you get a lot of free resources for her. Saul, on the other hand, is not. The things that he comes from are mostly alliance events and just getting lucky. So it's a little harder to focus on him. So most people focused on Jabelle in season 1. Saul is a great hero, especially in the later game. Like right now in season 4, he's kind of like the meta archer for dueling a garrison. So it would have been worth it to focus on him if they could have, but most people couldn't, so they focused on Jabelle. Season 2, since everybody already had that cavalry hero, most people skipped Hildy, even though she's probably the best thing to focus on in season 2 other than Marlon. So a lot of people focused on Marlon. Marlon has an attack widget. He's going to do a lot of damage that's going to last until season 5 and possibly even longer. Rosa came out in season 4, so she can replace him, but it's just 2 seasons away and you don't really need to. He still does great damage and has great skills. Season 3, a lot of people focused on Eric. Some people in season 3, instead of focusing on Eric, they were like, I kind of need Petra because I'm trying to deal more damage in my rallies. I don't have an infantry hero yet, but I'm still doing all right with Howard. Let me get Petra because she's got a rally widget, and I can try to focus on her. And they're just trying to get more damage in Bear Pit. So a lot of people focused on Petra, but some people focused on Eric instead to get that 3 typing down. And then in season 4, most people focused on Margot. Because Margot is honestly one of the best heroes that have been come out so far. And it's mostly because of this skill here, turning your cavalry into archers essentially, which gives you a lot more versatility, and she has a decent defense widget, so you can get a lot out of her. So everybody focuses one hero a season, but she's also a premium hero. So the people who didn't focus her did in fact focus Rosa because she's on the wheel. So, they would have focused Jabelle, they would have focused Marlon, they would have focused Petra, and then they go right back over to Rosa and getting another archer, and they still have just Howard. So there's a lot of free-to-play people right now who are doing Howard, Rosa, and either Jabelle or Petra. And that's because they're focusing one hero a season. And then the purple ones will build up themselves, as well as the blue ones, just through doing intels and using keys at your recruitment building. So this is how I go about choosing who I'm going to choose for any kind of battle. Combining heroes together to give them those unique bonuses. Even when you're doing something like, coming to Mystic Trial today, like even if you're doing something like Coliseum, you can put 3 teams together. And yeah, you're going to use probably your 9 strongest heroes when you put those teams together. But is it better to put one strong team as like all of your strongest heroes and one weak team as all of the weakest of the 3? Or is it better to maybe mix and match and try to get your stats at the highest possible thing they can be for all 3 teams, even though your power for each one is going to be a little different? And that's kind of the stuff you got to think about when you're selecting what heroes to use and why. That's all I have for today. I don't want to overwhelm you guys. So if you feel like you learned something, feel free to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, you can always message me on Discord.